God is trying to warn you. There are moments in life when the world grows strangely quiet. In those silences, the heart begins to hear what the ears have long ignored. It is not that God has been absent, nor that he has withheld his voice, but rather that we, in our noise, our pursuits, and our stubborn desires, have trained ourselves to miss the warning woven into every sunrise and sorrow. A warning is not the same as a punishment. Punishment comes after, when choices have run their course. A warning, however, is mercy in disguise. It is the hand that reaches before the fall, the voice that shouts before the cliff. God does not warn to frighten, but to save. He does not shake us to terrify, but to awaken. Think of how pain itself functions. The body aches not because it wishes you harm, but because it is desperate to protect you. The burn tells you to pull away from the fire before greater damage is done. In the same way, many of the troubles that disturb our peace are not accidents, but signals. The discontent that gnaws at you in the midst of your success, the emptiness that lingers after you have gained what you thought would complete you, the sharp conviction that follows a hidden sin, these are not random torments. They are warnings God is whispering, sometimes even shouting, "Do not go further down this road." But warnings are often unwelcome. We prefer the illusion of safety, the comfort of believing that all is well. A sailor does not thank the storm that drives him back to shore, yet the storm may be the very thing that spares his life. In the same way, the sudden collapse of a plan, the betrayal of a friend, the loss of what we idolized, these can be the severe mercies of God, breaking into our dream so that we may awaken to truth. What, then, is God warning us about? It is not always the external danger we fear, but the internal decay we ignore. We fear losing wealth, yet God warns us of greed. We fear losing health, yet God warns us of pride. We fear losing loved ones, yet God warns us of a heart that has forgotten how to love Him. His warnings are not about keeping us comfortable, but about keeping us alive, truly alive, in the only sense that matters eternally. And here lies the great paradox. The more we resist the warnings, the louder they must become. A whisper rejected turns into a shout, and a shout unheeded may one day turn into silence. God's warnings are patient, but not endless. To harden oneself against His call is to walk willingly into ruin. The tragedy is not that God failed to speak, but that we failed to listen. So ask yourself, what is God warning you about right now? It may not be written in the sky, but it may be hidden in the unrest of your own soul. That restlessness, that unease you try to drown with distractions, is not your enemy. It may be the last gift of grace before a fall. To ignore it is peril, to heed it is salvation. The question is not whether God is warning you. He is. The question is whether you will hear it. When the soul feels restless even in the midst of success, it is not emptiness without cause. It is God warning you that the path you are on cannot satisfy eternity. When the soul feels restless even in the midst of success, it is not emptiness without cause. It is God warning you that the path you are on cannot satisfy eternity. Many people try to dismiss this restlessness by labeling it as mere dissatisfaction, ambition that hasn't yet been quenched, or a passing mood that time will heal. But if you have lived long enough and observed yourself with honesty, you will realize that no matter how many milestones you reach, how many achievements you collect, or how many treasures you hold, something in the deepest chamber of your heart remains unfulfilled. This ache is not an accident. It is not a flaw in the human design. It is intentional. It is the whisper of eternity calling you to remember that nothing in this world can fully carry the weight of your soul. And that whisper, that sacred disturbance, is itself a warning from God. Consider the pattern of life. A child longs for freedom, imagines adulthood as the horizon of joy. The student longs for graduation, believing that success will settle the soul. The worker chases promotion, the entrepreneur chases wealth, the artist chases recognition, and each imagines that when the prize is finally in hand, the restlessness will be silenced. But time and again, when the goal is reached, there is a momentary thrill followed by the return of the same gnawing emptiness. The soul sighs, "Is this all?" That sigh is a divine warning, telling you not to be deceived by the mirage of satisfaction. It is God's way of rescuing you from worshiping shadows, His way of showing you that eternity cannot be filled by time-bound rewards. This warning often comes quietly. It does not crash into your life like a storm at first. Instead, it appears in the gentle discontent that rises in the midst of your accomplishments. The diploma on the wall, the house you dreamed of, the career you worked years to build, even the relationships you thought would complete you. None of them erase that subtle ache. And in moments of silence, when distractions are absent, the ache grows louder. The very fact that you can achieve everything you once prayed for and still feel a hollow space within is proof that the warning is real. God is telling you not to anchor your eternity in the fragile soil of temporary success, but many refuse to hear. The natural instinct is to drown out the unease. Some bury it under endless entertainment, always seeking noise to silence the whisper. Others chase pleasure, thinking another indulgence, another purchase, another adventure will finally quiet the heart. Some turn to work, filling their days so fully that they have no time to notice the warning within. Yet none of these distractions succeed for long. The whisper returns. The restlessness cannot be permanently drowned. It may pause, but it will rise again, because God does not stop warning those He loves. Why does God send this restlessness as a warning? Because He knows the soul was not made for temporary things. He knows that if He left us perfectly satisfied with shadows, we would mistake them for the substance and never seek the true source of joy. Imagine a traveler who mistakes a painted door for a real exit, or a starving man who believes that pictures of bread can sustain him. Without restlessness, we would remain content with illusions and never seek reality. The divine warning comes as a mercy, a holy dissatisfaction that drives us to look beyond the world's false promises. It is a reminder that eternity is written into our hearts, and eternity cannot be fed by what is passing away. This warning is not cruel, though it feels painful. It is painful because it interrupts the illusion we long to keep. But mercy often begins with discomfort. A warning is always meant to save, not to harm. A doctor who tells you of a growing disease does not wish you pain, he wishes you healing. In the same way, when God stirs your soul with unrest, He is revealing what you cannot see. He is urging you not to waste your life chasing what cannot satisfy. The pain of restlessness is a holy alarm clock, waking you before you sink too deeply into a dream that cannot last. Some people misinterpret this restlessness. They imagine it is a signal to change careers, to move cities, to seek new relationships, to reinvent themselves again and again. And while change can be good, the deepest warning is not about circumstances, but about the soul itself. You can run to another country, earn another fortune, meet another person, and still find the ache alive inside you. The warning is not saying you need a new location. It is saying you need a new foundation. It is not about escaping outward situations. It is about listening to what your heart is crying for. a satisfaction that only the eternal can give. Those who learn to listen to this warning begin to see life differently. They stop expecting perfection from imperfect things. They stop placing the unbearable burden of ultimate fulfillment on people, possessions, or positions. They recognize the warning for what it is, the kindness of God pulling them away from shallow waters into the depths of real life. They understand that success is too small to carry the soul, that wealth is too fragile to sustain eternity, that even love, as precious as it is, cannot replace the eternal love that made us. By listening to the warning, they turn their gaze upward, not as an escape from life, but as the only way to finally live it fully. The restlessness of the soul in the midst of success is not an enemy to be silenced, but a messenger to be heeded. It is God's voice disguised as longing. It is His mercy disguised as discomfort. It is His protection disguised as pain. If you feel it, you are being warned, not abandoned. If you hear it, you are being guided, not condemned. And the warning will not cease until you finally seek the one who alone can satisfy eternity. A storm that wrecks your plans may be the very storm that saves your life. God's warnings often come dressed as disappointments. A storm that wrecks your plans may be the very storm that saves your life. God's warnings often come dressed as disappointments. When we dream, we imagine life as a straight road, clear skies above us, and the future opening exactly as we planned. We create blueprints of success, carefully laying out where we want to be and what we want to achieve. But life rarely bends to our designs, and when storms rise without invitation, scattering the work of our hands, we instinctively call it misfortune. Yet hidden within many of these interruptions is a warning we would never have heeded without the storm. It is God's way of shaking the fragile structures we have built upon sand, His way of steering us away from dangers unseen, His way of breaking our illusions so we might not be broken by reality. Disappointment has a way of piercing deeper than ordinary pain. Ordinary pain passes, but disappointment lingers because it touches not just the body but the heart, not just circumstances but expectations. When what we longed for collapses, we feel as though a piece of us has collapsed with it. Yet, what if that very collapse is not cruelty but mercy? What if the thing we begged for, the path we insisted upon, the door we tried to force open, would have destroyed us had it been granted? The storm that ruins the ship you built may be the storm that spares you from a sea that would have swallowed you whole. God sees what we do not. He hears conversations we were never meant to hear. He knows dangers that lie years ahead of us, and He allows the storm not to destroy, but to redirect. Think of the moments in your life where doors slammed shut. A job you desperately wanted did not come through. A relationship you believed was certain suddenly ended. A dream you nurtured for years came undone in a matter of days. In those moments, disappointment feels like betrayal. You question your worth, your choices, your prayers. You wonder if heaven has fallen silent. But often, years later, when you look back, you realize that what you lost would have chained you. What you missed would have misled you. What you failed to gain would have drained you. The storm that once felt like an enemy now looks like a rescuer, and you recognize that God's warnings were hidden in those very disappointments, saving you from paths you could not see yet. The warning does not always reveal itself immediately. Sometimes disappointment remains a mystery. Sometimes you never discover what danger was avoided. Faith is required in those times, a faith that trusts that storms do not arrive without purpose, that the collapse of plans is not the collapse of meaning. Faith whispers that if God is sovereign enough to permit the storm, He is wise enough to use it for your good. The very fact that your plans have been wrecked may be proof that His plan is still intact. What feels like an ending is often a detour designed by mercy. God's warnings are not always explanations. They are often simply protections, but here lies the challenge. We are creatures who crave control. Disappointment threatens that control, and so we fight it. We resist the storm, we demand answers, we attempt to rebuild exactly what was destroyed. In doing so, we risk missing the warning altogether. To receive disappointment as a possible message requires humility. It requires admitting that we do not see the full picture, that our desires, however sincere, are not infallible guides. We can want what is harmful, we can pursue what is empty, we can love what will one day betray us. Disappointment, in this sense, is a mirror held up to our limitations. It humbles us into recognizing that we are not the final authors of our stories. When God warns through disappointment, He is not saying we must abandon all desire. Rather, He is refining desire, turning it away from things too small to hold our hope, and toward the only foundation that cannot fail. A storm destroys only what is weak. That which is strong remains. In the same way, disappointment often reveals the fragility of what we built our lives upon. If a single rejection, a single failure, a single loss has the power to undo our entire identity, then perhaps our identity was too fragile to begin with. God allows storms to shake us, so that what cannot be shaken may finally stand. He removes lesser loves, so that the greater love may finally be seen. Disappointment also teaches us to listen more carefully. When life goes according to plan, we rush forward, intoxicated by progress, deaf to subtle warnings. But when plans fall apart, we are forced to slow down, to ask questions, to seek direction. The silence that follows disappointment becomes the very place where God's voice is heard more clearly. In the ruins of what we thought was unshakable, He whispers of a better way, a stronger foundation, a higher calling. The warning in disappointment is not always, do not walk at all, but often, do not walk here, do not walk this way. It is guidance hidden inside grief. There are some storms we would never choose but desperately need. A storm that strips away your pride may save your soul from arrogance. A storm that ends a toxic relationship may save your heart from destruction. A storm that closes a door you idolized may redirect you toward a door you were meant to enter all along. And though the storm feels harsh, it is, in truth, the very kindness of God refusing to let you settle for ruin disguised as success. Disappointment becomes a shield, not a sword. What you thought was breaking you was in fact keeping you from being destroyed, so when you encounter disappointment, do not rush to call it failure. It may be a warning, it may be protection, it may be the unseen hand of God pulling you from the edge of a cliff. The storm that wrecks your plans may not be the enemy you imagine, but the very friend you did not recognize. God's warnings rarely come in the form we prefer. They come dressed as loss, as closed doors, as wrecked dreams. Yet inside those disappointments is the hand of mercy, guiding you away from what could never hold you. Toward what was meant to save you. Pain is not cruelty, but mercy. It shouts what comfort whispers. Turn back before it is too late. Pain is not cruelty, but mercy. It shouts what comfort whispers. Turn back before it is too late. We often imagine that pain is the great enemy of life, the thing to be avoided at all costs, the evidence that something has gone terribly wrong. Yet in truth, pain is one of the clearest and most consistent ways God warns us. Comfort speaks softly, often too softly for us to hear, but pain raises its voice so that we cannot ignore it. Where comfort suggests that all is well, pain disrupts the illusion and calls us to examine what lies beneath the surface. It is not the strike of an enemy, but the alarm of a guardian. Without pain, we would walk into destruction without noticing. With pain, we are stopped, slowed. Turned around before the damage becomes final, the human body teaches us this truth daily. When a flame burns your skin, it is not cruelty but kindness that the nerve endings scream with urgency. If there were no pain, your hand would remain in the fire until it was destroyed. When disease takes root in the body, the aches and symptoms are not intended to torment. They are signals demanding attention. Pain is the body's warning system, its way of saying, "Do not ignore this, danger is near." In the same way, the soul has its own kind of pain. The weight of guilt after wrongdoing, the emptiness after indulgence, the unease after choosing pride over humility, the sorrow after ignoring what is good. These are not meaningless emotions. They are the inner voice of God's mercy, shouting through the chambers of the heart, warning that the path we are on will lead to ruin if we do not turn back. But how often we misinterpret this voice. We think pain means abandonment, when in truth it means attention. We assume that if God loved us, He would silence all suffering, but what if His very love is the reason He allows it? A parent who never disciplines a child, who never warns or corrects, is not showing love but negligence. A surgeon who refuses to cut for fear of causing pain would doom the patient to death. In the same way, God allows the sharp edge of pain to reach us, not because He delights in it, but because He knows what would happen without it. Pain is a gift we rarely thank Him for, because its wrapping is harsh, yet within it lies a mercy greater than comfort ever provides. Consider how different people respond to the whisper of comfort compared to the shout of pain. When life is easy, when success flows, when health is strong and relationships are steady, very few stop to ask deeper questions. Comfort lulls us to sleep. It tempts us into thinking that the road we are on must be the right one simply because it feels smooth. But pain has the power to awaken. A broken plan forces us to think again. A loss forces us to reevaluate our priorities. A failure forces us to confront truths we would rather avoid. Pain pulls back the curtain and reveals what comfort concealed. It is the merciful interruption that prevents us from walking further into self-deception. There are countless ways pain acts as a divine warning. It may come through the guilt that follows a hidden sin. That sting in your conscience, which you try so hard to silence, is not there to torment you endlessly, but to warn you that what is done in secret will not remain harmless. It may come through the exhaustion that follows a life built on greed, ambition, and endless striving. The body wears down, the mind grows weary, the heart becomes numb, and all of it is shouting, "You were not made for this pace, this hunger, this idle." It may come through heartbreak, the searing reminder that putting all your trust in fragile human love can never be the foundation of your soul. Each form of pain, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, carries within it a message if only we are willing to hear it. The tragedy is not that pain exists, but that we often refuse to learn from it. Many silence the warning by drowning it in distractions. Some numb it with pleasures, addictions, or endless busyness. Others turn bitter, choosing to see pain only as cruelty, never as correction. But the wise recognize that behind the pain is a voice calling them to change direction. Just as a sailor listens to the storm to know when to alter course, so must we listen to the storm of our own suffering to know when God is urging us to turn back. Ignoring pain does not erase its truth. It only delays it until the consequences become unavoidable. It is worth noticing that pain always demands humility. To respond to it rightly, we must admit that we are not as strong as we think, that we cannot control every outcome, that we need help beyond ourselves. Pride hates pain because pride wants to remain independent, untouchable, self-sufficient. But pain breaks that illusion and brings us back to reality. It lowers us so that we might be lifted. It empties us so that we might be filled. Without it, we would remain proud wanderers, blind to the cliff before us. With it, we are given a chance to stop, to turn, to be saved. Even history itself shows this pattern. Entire nations have grown complacent in times of ease, only to be awakened by hardship. Communities that once ignored morality or justice have found themselves shaken by calamities that force them to reconsider their ways. Pain, whether personal or collective, has always had the strange ability to strip away what is false and expose what is true. It clears the fog of comfort and demands that we see clearly again. It may not tell us everything, but it tells us enough. That we cannot go on as we are, that something must change, that the path we thought was safe is, in fact, dangerous. When you begin to see pain not as cruelty, but as mercy, the perspective shifts. Instead of asking only, "Why me?" you begin to ask, "What is this pain trying to tell me?" You realize that the discomfort may be a compass, pointing away from destruction and toward life. You realize that the ache in your conscience, the sorrow in your heart, the weakness in your body may all be warning signs designed not to harm, but to rescue. What comfort whispers faintly, pain declares boldly, that the road you are on cannot continue, that the direction you are heading is not the final destination you were made for, that there is still time to turn back before it is too late.